Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. Our continuing story goes into Genesis chapter 14 and 15 for today. Get into a little bit of a war here, so a little more slaughter on behalf of the Almighty. Here we go. Now, when King Amraphel of Shinar, King Arioch of Elasar, King Chedorlaomer of Elam, and King Tidal of Goyim made war on King Bera of Sodom, King Birsha of Gomorrah, King Shinab of Admah, King Shember of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. All the latter joined forces at the valley of Siddim, now the Dead Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. In the 14th year, Chedorlaomer and the kings who were with him came and defeated the Rephaim at Ashtaroth Keranaim, the Zuzim at Ham, the Emumim at Shava Kirathaim, and the Horites in their hill country of Seir as far as El Paran, which is by the wilderness. On their way back, they came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and subdued all the territory of the Amalekites, and also the Amorites who dwelt in Hazazon Tamar. The king of Sodom, the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admah, the king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar, went forth and engaged them in battle at the valley of Siddim. King Chedorlaomer of Elam, King Tidal of Goyim, King Amraphel of Shinar, and King Arioch of Elasar, 4 kings against those 5. Now the valley of Siddim was dotted with bitumen pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah in their flight threw themselves into them, while the rest escaped into the hill country. The invaders seized all the wealth of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their provisions, and went their way. They also took Lot, the son of Abram's brother, and his possessions, and departed, for he had settled in Sodom. A fugitive brought the news to Abram the Hebrew, who was dwelling at the terebinths of Mamre the Amorite, kinsman of Eshcol and Aner, those being Abram's allies. When Abram heard that his kinsman had been taken captive, he mustered his retainers, born into his household, numbering 318, and went into pursuit as far as Dan. At night he and his servants deployed against them and defeated them, and he pursued them as far as Hobah, which is the north of Damascus. He brought back all the possessions. He also brought back his kinsman Lot, and his possessions, and the women, and the rest of the people. When he returned from defeating Chedorlaomer and the kings with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh, which is the valley of the king. And King Melchizedek of Salem brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of the God Most High. He blessed him, saying, Blessed be Abram of the God Most High, creator of heaven and earth. Blessed be God Most High, who has delivered your foes into hand. And Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. The king of Sodom said to Abram, Give me the persons and take the possessions for yourself. But Abram said to the king of Sodom, I swear to the Lord God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, I will take not so much as a thread or sandal strap of what is yours. You shall not say, It is I who made Abram rich. For me, nothing but what my servants have used up. As for the share of men who went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre, let them take their share. That's chapter 14. Quite a bit of military action here. Now, again, it's 4 kings versus 5. There's a rebellion, but it's a particularly grisly way for the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah to escape. They throw themselves into bitumen pits. Bitumen is pretty much what the La Brea tar pits were made out of, and they're the ones that captured those woolly rhinoceri and held them for thousands of years so that we could examine them. But even more importantly, we see Sodom and Gomorrah suddenly taking center stage, and they're admitting Lot is now living in Sodom. That's going to come back later. We see a lot of the local history of the time. These kings and places mean almost nothing to us these days. If you want to sit down as a biblical scholar and, you know, track them out, it is absolutely possible to do that. But what you're seeing here is Abram is not a shepherd. This reinforces the idea. He's not this simple guy wandering around. He calls over 300 people that were born into his household. That means they're free men. They're not slaves. They're not. So he probably had more troops than that. And he was able to engage multiple kings, defeat them, and take back all their spoils of war. That's a man with serious power on his hands. Besides the might of the Lord backing him up, he's a pretty shrewd military tactician. Like I said before, he's a man of peace first, but in the moment, when his nephew is carried away, he knows he has to react. He can't rely on the mercy of kings. The time for diplomacy is over, as they say. So he mobilizes his personal cavalry, which I imagine include those camels that the Pharaoh of Egypt gave him earlier. Camels are the cavalry of the desert and are far more useful than horses. And they hunt down these kings and destroy them all. And then to show, to illuminate Abram's character, and please note, he still is Abram at this time. He's not called Abraham till a little while later. And Abram tells the king of Sodom, just cover my expenses. I'm not going to take anything from you. You're already seeing that tension building to what I think you know that we're going to get into. But this is, again, that's a chapter. There's a lot to unpack in that chapter. There's battles, there's alliances, there's betrayal, and there's a hero. That's one chapter. I looked it up, and despite the fact that most of these episodes, shall we call them, are one chapter, people have made movies out of them. As recently as 2014, Russell Crowe and Emma Watson starred in a movie about Noah. It's 4 pages of the Bible. 4 chapters, 2 pages. So people are able to take these because it's just so compressed and read all the meaning they want into them. But this could be a whole series if we really wanted to drag things out with the politics and stuff like that. But enough of the battle. Some people have tried to identify who is who, and they've suggested one of them as being the king of Hammurabi. You know, king of Hammurabi of Babylon, the same one that gave us the laws of today, the formula for the laws of today. Maybe, maybe not. It's not that it's not relevant, it's just something that I feel needs more research and I do not feel qualified to comment on, but it is something to bear in mind. It's also important to bear in mind we need to get to chapter 15. Sometime later, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision, and he said, "Fear not, Abram, I am a shield to you. Your reward shall be very great." But Abram said, "O Lord God, what can you give me, seeing that I shall die childless, and the one in charge of my household is Damascus Eliezer?" Abram said further, "Since you have granted me no offspring, my steward shall be my heir." The word of the Lord came to him and replied, "That one shall not be your heir. None but your very own issue shall be your heir." He took him outside and said, "Look towards heaven and count the stars, if you are able to count them." And he added, "So shall your offspring be." And because he put his trust in the Lord, he reckoned it to his merit. He then said to him, "I am the Lord who brought you out of Ur of the Chaldeans to assign this land to you as a possession." And he said, "O Lord God, how shall I know I am to possess it?" He answered, "Bring me a 3-year-old heifer, a 3-year-old she-goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young bird." He brought him all these and cut them in two, placing each half opposite the other, but he did not chop off the bird. Birds of prey came down upon the carcasses, and Abram drove them away. As the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a great dark dread descended upon him. And he said to Abram, "Know well that your offspring shall be strangers in a land not theirs, and they shall be enslaved and oppressed 400 years. But I will execute judgment on the nation that they serve, and in the end they shall go free with great wealth. As for you, you shall go to your fathers in peace. You shall be buried at a ripe old age. And they shall return here in the 4th generation, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet complete. When the sun set and it was very dark, there appeared a smoking oven and a flaming torch which passed between those pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, To your offspring I assign this land. From the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites. So we have here a very interesting set of dream sequences. This is the first time in the Bible God really communicates through a dream. God has simply appeared and told people before this. Now he's communicating through dreams. Not really his method of operation up till now, but God has changed things up. Remember what I said before? The more people, the more God's power is kind of spread out. That's exactly what we're seeing here. The sacrifice, again, an heifer, a she-goat, a 3-year-old ram, a turtle dove, and a young bird. All meat. The 3-year-old is a little bit interesting. I don't know enough about animals to say when they're at their tastiest or most tender. The closest I can really say anything about is a 3-year-old heifer might be like veal. Don't know enough about that. It's just pure opinion on my part. And the darkness that descends upon them shows that a dark prophecy is coming. This is a very beautiful symbolic work. We also have the section where it's basically promised him for the river Egypt to the river Euphrates and all the people therein. Well, in our modern period of time, in 2022, not sure when you're listening to this particular recording, we know that version of Israel is nowhere close to being extant. In the past, the borders of Israel were different. So perhaps this prophecy still has to be completed, fulfilled. But we're going to see about that in the coming years. Right now, it doesn't look too darn likely with the whole schmoz between them and the Palestinians and the Arab states and blah, 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 etc., etc. We're not here to discuss politics during this. This is a critical review of the book, not a skeptical one. The Bible has nothing to prove to us, but we can look into it and inquire. That's the purpose of this series, to use our knowledge, to read the text, and appreciate it for exactly what it is. Because you want to be a skeptic? Yeah, we can do all sorts of horrible things to this text and rip it apart and blah, blah, blah. But there we are. We're going to end this episode at the present. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget to help out the channel by buying the merchandise. We are not monetized at present. This may change in the future, but at present, we're independent. So the merchandise is really the only way to support the channel. But liking helps in the algorithm. Sharing helps other people get the knowledge out. And just, yeah, no matter what, we are getting through this book. And I mean the whole Bible. And I have a lot of ideas to go beyond that. So, thank you for listening to this. We hope you have a fantastic day.